Keramikos is a district in the center of Athens, the biggest part of which occupied by the archaeological site and the homonymous ancient cemetery. Systematic excavations of the area of Keramikos started in the 1870s by the Greek Archaeological Society and were later assumed by the German Archaeological Institute. The fortification walls, the gates and the Pompeion were revealed first, and later a necropolis on the southern hill with the ancient cemetery of Athens dating from about 2000 BC. In 1994, a new excavation was prompted in the area by underground works for the construction of the Metro of Athens, where the archaeologists located a new stretch of the cemetery with dozens of graves and also a mass burial pit. The disorderly, hasty and impious manner of burial and the dating of the few funerary gifts led archaeologists of the Third Ephorate of Athens to the conclusion that it was a mass burial of the victims of the plague that struck Athens during the first years of the Peloponnesian War between 430 and 426 BC. Part of the skeletal material collected from the pit of Keramikos was taken to the Educational Institute of Athens for conservation, as it offered the grounds for a biomedical approach through the study of human skeletal remains. In 2005, a scientific team organized by Assistant Professor of the University of Athens Manolis Papagrigorakis conducted research in order to detect the causative factor of the plague of Athens. Until then, all data pertaining to the plague-causing pathogen were based exclusively on the account of the epidemic as reported by the 5th century BC Greek historian Thucydides, since there was no definite microbiological or paleopathological evidence.
Μέσα στο λάκκο βρέθηκαν άντρες, γυναίκες, παιδιά. Ένα από αυτά ήταν ένα παιδί το οποίο είχε όλα τα χαρακτηριστικά της ηλικίας του και ήταν αυτό το στοιχείο το οποίο με όθησε να ξεκινήσω να κάνω την ανάπλαση του προσώπου. Αυτό το κρανίο έχει νεογυλά και μόνιμα δόντια. Ένα άλλο θετικό στοιχείο που με έκανε να προχωρήσω στην ανάπλαση ήταν ότι το κρανίο αυτό ήταν ατόφιο. Δεν του έλειπε κανένα στοιχείο.
However, molecular biology tools have now enabled the detection of microbial DNA fragments in ancient skeletal material, thus rendering possible the retrospective diagnosis of ancient diseases. Dental pulp DNA material of 3 intact teeth, randomly collected from the Keramikos mass burial pit, provided evidence for the presence of the microorganism Salmonella enterica serovartifi, incriminating typhoid fever as a likely cause of the plague of Athens. Among the remains of circa 150 skeletons that were recovered from the mass grave of Keramikos, there was a child's skull in excellent condition, retaining both its deciduous and permanent teeth. Scientists found that the skull belonged to an 11-year-old girl, and they gave her the name Myrtis. In 2007, the team of researchers decided to reconstruct the head and face of the above skull. The construction of an exact replica of the skull was necessary, whereupon the facial reconstruction would follow. 3D modeling and rapid prototyping techniques were used to produce the replica, while computer tomography images reconstructed the anatomy. A Dimension SST778 3D printer was used for the construction of the physical replica and required about 64 hours to complete. Finally, the cast was sent to Sweden, where the reconstruction of the face of Myrtis was accomplished by the sculpture modeler Oskar Nilsson. Special markers were placed in various points of the replicated skull as guidelines to the thickness of the clay that would be applied. Muscles were sculpted, artificial inlaid eyes were put in place. The nose was made according to the underlying bones, and the ears were created in harmony with the rest of the face. The teeth were a key feature in the rendering of her expression, whereas a faint smile gave her face a childish air. Her style and robe were inspired by depictions of children in sculptures and drawings of Myrtis' time.
δεύτερη φάση ήταν να πάρουμε ένα καλούπι αυτού του μοντέλου και σε αυτό το καλούπι να ρίξουμε ένα ειδικό υλικό, μια ειδική ρητίνη. Σε αυτή την ειδική ρητίνη προσθέθηκαν μερικά στοιχεία τα οποία δίνουν την αίσθηση της επιδερμίδος της μύρτιδος. Προσθέθηκαν τα μαλλιά, οι βλεφαρίδες και τα φρύδια και έτσι έχουμε μια ολοκληρωμένη εικόνα ενός παιδιού της εποχής του Περικλή.
Myrtis is the first face we have ever seen of a lay person residing in Athens of the golden age of Pericles. And even though she didn't have the chance to grow up and live her life, her reconstructed face may have the chance to inspire people of today and remind them of the values of ancient Athens, the cradle of democracy.